All right, well, welcome back to Giving Tuesday Live at BTI. We are moving from in-person interview to going remote. And we are joined by a BTI alumna who was here back in the mid-2000s, I believe. And so thank you for joining us, Hanh. And where are you coming from exactly?
Well, I am now.
Why am I getting an echo? There it is.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh yeah, sorry. Okay.
Okay.
We had a little audio malfunction.
Where is this technology?
I forgot I had the actual streaming of our broadcast on a different browser, so we were on a little bit of a delay. So let's start over. So where are we talking to you from?
I'm in Holland. I'm in the Netherlands. So I'm in a town called Leiden. It's about half an hour from Amsterdam.
Okay.
This is where, we've been living here for a year and a half, or almost 2 years now. So you can see it's dark outside. The days here are much shorter in the winter than in Ithaca, I think. But in the summer, I think it's much longer as well. So we're quite a bit further up north. But the weather, I have to say, is a lot better than Ithaca. It's less sun, but it doesn't have any snow. So I do miss the snow. But
It's hard to imagine less sun. Central New York has a really bad overcast reputation.
it's real.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your journey into science and how that led to you becoming a graduate student at BTI.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Hanh Nguyen, as the Keith, as you already mentioned. So I'm from Vietnam originally. I came to the U.S. when for undergrad, and then as kind of one thing led to the other. The whole med school thing didn't work out, so I decided, I got more interested in plants than human blood. So I was kind of was looking around after my undergrad to see what else I could do, and then I think Cornell came up as one of the top school for plant science. So I applied and was lucky that I got in. So I think back then we was able to do rotations, 3 rotations in the first year. And so I went through different labs in plant breeding, plant path, and Greg's lab. And so I think that was my either second or third rotation. And then I decided to do my PhD in Greg's lab because it was very interesting, the research that was done in the lab, and I was really enjoying the 3 months I had at BTI. So that's kind of how I got into science and got to BTI.
And the Greg you mentioned is Greg Martin, who
there's one Greg.
who we just talked with, a previous guest about Greg's work with bacterial speck disease in tomato and some other things. So just so the audience has a full reference of who we're discussing. So you spent time in Greg's lab, and then when it was time to leave, kind of how did you approach what you were going to do next?
Well, so actually, right after my PhD, I actually went on and did a postdoc. So I, was still considering a career in academia or at least stick around in science. So I went to Switzerland for the sense of adventure. So I joined the lab in the University of Zurich and started a project on wheat rust, so still disease resistance in crop plants. So I did that for about 10 months or so, but then I think it was a very different environment I came from, a very different. Yeah, if you talk to anyone who have done their work in the U.S. at the top university versus in Europe, it's a very different mentality that people approach science in two different places. So I thought, yeah, maybe I should try something else. And then then there was I learned about McKinsey and Company as a consulting company, and it was lucky was the only place that was hiring people who didn't speak any of the local languages, German or French. So I applied and got in, and yes, I was there for 5 years, based in Zurich. It was much longer time for me to be in Europe than I anticipated, but that was it was, a lot of fun as well, and I learned a lot during the McKinsey time, and I think it's really something I found that what I was passionate in. It's a challenging environment with very immediate practical impact on companies, and I was also doing some projects in the social sectors, and that was allowed me to bring in the soft skill that I learned during my PhD, and then I think in general having a training as a scientist allow you to do a lot of things afterward. That something that I didn't really appreciate. Let's say when I was doing my PhD, I thought, that's the only thing you could do after your PhD is continuing in science. But there's a lot more things that you could do, and definitely having a degree from Cornell really helps, right, to open doors.
So yeah, I mean that's something we talk a lot about here at BTI. There's kind of this traditional path that I think you do a PhD and maybe you do a postdoc here at BTI as well, and kind of the more common trajectory is then to kind of go into science research within academia, and it seems there's an increasing amount of pushing, or at least kind of communicating other options that you can kind of do with your training and your talent and your experience. So how would you kind of advise kind of up and coming researchers in that way? So you kind of took that path, but what would you say to people that might be a little bit afraid to go the road you went?
Yeah. Well, I think then you have to ask yourself, what get you interested in science, right? Is it the content or also the curiosity of answering questions or solving of problems, right? Because I think that's essentially, I think what you can draw the parallel between whatever you do in life with what you're trying to do in your PhD or your postdoc, right? Is you're trying to solve a problem because you're curious about it, and you have certain sense of commitment and ownership for your project. And I think all these attributes are things that people in industry looks for, and there are enough problems, interesting problems in the world that can be that your intelligence and your skill could be applied to. So there's no limit to where you could apply your passion and your interests in, right? So the trick is, of course, how do you find that area where you are where you could flourish and where you feel passionate about a topic that you're passionate about, and how do you advertise yourself that to show that somebody who have no experience in business could also tackle certain things, right? But I think there's an increasing awareness in a lot of companies that the skill that scientists develop during their training is easily translatable into a business context. So I think, that's definitely, at least I see from McKinsey's environment, also other consultancies, or if you look at, Google, Facebook, any of the tech companies, they also tend to hire, open up, the non MBA or business school background to get to tap into the pool of talents that are in the PhD programs.
And you kind of hinted at it earlier, but what are some of the differences you see in being in the scientific industry in Europe versus what you saw while you were doing it here in the United States?
Yeah, I think I guess one of the things that they're probably not always really fond memories, but when I remember these things, I remember them fondly. That it's always the passion for science, right? You don't do it as a job. You do it because you're passionate in what you're doing, and people don't mind going the extra mile to make it happen, right? I can't remember how many evenings or how many nights or weekends I spend at BTI, and there's always people in the lab, right? And versus and then you also feel the excitement when people discover something. Of course, there's also a lot of agony, but it's when you have coffee break, like people talk about exciting scientific stuff, right? In Europe, I think people tend to separate more the work and life, and I think there's good things about that too. But for me, at least, the fire that I used to feel that fuel my work, I didn't really feel it as much anymore when I'm not in that kind of exciting environment. Right?
Yeah, so you visited BTI earlier in the fall, and you and I had a fun discussion about that, because I think so many people see that almost as one of the downsides or exhausting aspects of being a young scientist, is that sometimes you're in the lab on the weekends and late at night or through the night. But you mentioned it more as there was a lot of camaraderie within that. Is that how you kind of remember it when you were here at BTI?
Yeah, it's always you always look back at things with pink goggles, right? For me it was really a lot of fun, and my husband is still in academics, and he also did his PhD at Cornell, and he really missed that too. Now he has his own lab, and it's difficult to get that kind of excitement instilled in students, and I really think it's really something that work. Yeah, you don't have to separate work and life, right? When you have you should have passion for your work, because you spend so much time at work. So if that's not something you're passionate about, then it's not probably not the right thing to do. But when you start feeling like and of course there's the balance of abusive behavior versus of the bosses, and so there's a fine balance in that, and I am aware of situations where that happens. But I don't think that at least in my own experience of the people that I've seen, that's really not the case. That people are self-motivated to come in and do their work, right? And I think that's something that there's nothing to be ashamed about in a way.
Well, so you mentioned your husband, and that is someone who you actually met while you were doing your grad school or PhD work. Is that correct?
Yeah, the big red barn.
We're all great relationships take off. The big red barn. And you recently came back with some other friends. So it sounds like this the Ithaca area, BTI. I know you came back and visited Greg Martin. There's a handful of people that you kind of come back and meet here. So it sounds like the actual the area, living here for a while still has a place in your hearts.
Yeah, definitely.
What were kind of your favorite things to do while you were here outside of the lab?
Well, I mean, besides going on Fridays to the Big Red Barns, we have, I love the farmers market. I think I pretty much, I live downtown in Fall Creek, so I think pretty much every weekend I would go to the farmers market, and I love Wegmans. I think that's the best grocery store. I think the Wegmans in Ithaca is the best grocery store in the world. And,
you're not going to get an argument from this guy.
Yeah, and the Wing of Life. I'm actually making Wing of Life salad tonight because I was.
Wow! All right.
I bought the cookbook from her, and
wow.
I think somebody gave it to me as a go away present, so I could recreate Wing of Life salad when I'm away, and then yeah, the gorgeous, or the now no longer that chapter house, all these things. Yeah, Ithaca is a strange place. I would consider myself lucky to be in Ithaca at the time when there was a lot of people that I like. Well, I met them in Ithaca, but I had a good group of friends and different in actually not only biologists but also from other disciplines. My husband is a physicist. We have friends in the humanities, and you don't need good bars or clubs. I mean, we just go hang out at each other's house. We go to the gorges and we commiserate on the snow, etc. It's just we think back. Definitely is my husband and I always have a think back about on our time in Ithaca with really fond memories, right? I'm sure I had my fair share of days of complaining about the snow and all that, but
Right.
in the we always say it's a magical place. And we came back for a few days, and we could still feel the magic, right?
Yeah.
Of Ithaca. So you're lucky to still be living there.
Well, we feel fortunate though, when we've already dealt with a snowstorm already this year, so it can test you, but we stick around, and it really is interesting because at BTI there is such an international presence within the building, and so I think Ithaca, it is a very unique place for kind of all these young scientists from different countries to kind of find themselves in this small little college town. And kind of helps define the experience a bit, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
So, we just have a couple minutes left. I guess talk a little bit more about the work you're doing right now, and what you're hoping to kind of do in the future with that work. Where do you hope it goes, or where it takes you?
Yeah, well, so I, like I said, I'm leading one of the business units in my company, and it's a newly formed business unit, and we have pretty ambitious growth goals, right? Our target for this coming year. We finished a really good year this past fiscal year, and but then they just expect more, right? But at the same time, yeah, for me, it's a big challenge to going from from consultancy, which is more advising, to really run a business and make it work, and really involved in the operational side of things, the strategy, not just the strategy side of things. So that's basically my immediate challenge is finish the next 12 months according to what we plan, or even more. And then beyond that, I think I want to further grow into, let's say, the management role with bigger portfolio. Who knows, right? There's always I'm not. I try to plan my career in terms of the experience I will learn and the things that I will learn, so I now got a little taste of general management, so I think the next step is then to deal with a bigger portfolio, and who knows? Yeah, I would love to be able to run my own business at some point, or be in the executive team or something like that, right, for our big company. So my ambition is small, but I'm having fun, having a lot of fun doing it.
Well, I find your career very interesting because I think it really shows that you can kind of emerge from the scientific training, but if you remain flexible and adaptable, there's kind of a lot of different directions you can go, and kind of new experiences you can find along the way. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, and sharing a look back at your time at BTI, and we wish you nothing but the best moving forward.
Yeah.
And thanks for doing BTI proud as an alumnus, and we look forward to your next visit back to Ithaca. Is that scheduled yet, or do you not know?
Not yet. We're expecting a baby girl end of January. So
well, congratulations on that.
immediate goal is to stay put.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
Good
all
luck with everything, and I'm always happy to help if anyone have any questions about career move or how to deal with Ithaca. Let me know.
All right. Well, we thank you so much for your time, and we wish you best luck with the new one coming to the family. And
Yeah.
we'll be sure to send some BTI goodies for the newborn.
I'll send a picture.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
All right. Good luck with the rest of the day.
All right,
Bye.
thanks so much. We will be back in just a few more minutes with BTI President David Stern.